Hey, what's going on, guys? We are coming back at you. Behind the Pulpit is here. We are so glad that you have tuned in today, and thank you for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe. And my name is Dave, one of the pastors of Mellington Baptist Church. I'm here, as always, with my esteemed colleague, Pastor Bob.
You know, I ever watch those?
Is this like a small, medium, large? What size are we at this morning?
This is a medium right here. Not a grande, because it's from Dunkin' Donuts, but it's a medium. Do you ever watch those new shows where they go around, they introduce people, and they're clearly waiting for the camera, and they're just there?
Super smiley.
Big smiley.
I'm ready. Whenever I'm ready.
I'm ready.
Whenever the camera's coming, I'm ready.
Hey, I'm here.
What's going on, man?
Good to be here, man.
It is the beginning of April here. It's officially spring. The daffodils are popping up from the ground. Easter is upon us and about 13 days away, Pastor Bob, just to remind you. And we got an exciting show for you today. We got a lot going on in the news. We're going to talk about a famous passage that is kind of debated. What's going on here with this thorn in the flesh, and what does it mean to be strong when we're weak? These are complicated theological sanctification issues. So we're looking forward to diving deep today, which is what we do. That's what we do. But first, we got to talk about some stuff happening all around us in the news. All right, man. The Final Four was made up of all number one seed teams this year, which was kind of predictable, and maybe that made a lot of people's bracket do a lot better. But Saturday night...
Give me a shot.
So Saturday night, man, I don't know if you guys watched that Duke-Houston game, but that was a nail-biter. Duke was up by, I think, 9 points with like a minute to go. They're up by 9, and they lost because Houston went on an incredible run.
What collapse?
They took victory out of the, what is it, the jaws of defeat? Is that the expression? Then they just
I think that is the axiom.
I think they made some Blue Devils cry, man. That was some tenacity there at the end of the NCAA game.
Whoa.
So tonight, as you're watching this show, it'll all be over, but we're gonna see who's the champion this year. Is it Houston or is it the Florida Gators?
Do need to shout out the UConn women's team.
Absolutely.
They blew out South Carolina.
Not even a game. Yeah. It's
Check their best player out with like most of the fourth quarter left.
It's an exciting day for women's basketball right now. I feel like there's a renewed sense of energy around that.
UConn's so back.
Absolutely, man. So if you're a college basketball fan, man, it's been an exciting weekend, and looking forward to the game tonight. Also in sports, our producer is wearing his jersey today. Did you notice that? Tim, what's the occasion?
Did we catch a glimpse of Tim yet?
Is there something special that
Capitals.
happens in the
I am
NHL?
not a Washington Capitals fan, but I am a fan of the NHL, and Alexander Ovechkin is the new all-time leader in goals for the NHL, a record that I don't think anyone thought would be broken. 895 goals, surpassing Wayne Gretzky with 894. Now, Wayne Gretzky still has like 1,200 more assists than Ovechkin. But what's really interesting is he's got 895. Gretzky had 894, and they both have, as of now, the same exact amount of games played, which is really interesting.
So my generation, there was no one like Gretzky. He has held that
There's
title.
still no one like Gretzky.
He's held that title for 31 years, since 1994.
Yes.
And at that time, he surpassed Gordie Howe.
Yep.
And, man, this weekend was 895. That's quite a bit, man.
Yeah, he almost did it at home. He had 3 on
you
Friday
were telling
night.
me about this,
on
right?
Friday night, he had 3 to go, and I was out to dinner, and we were saying, oh, wouldn't it be funny if he did it on a hat trick? Well, sure enough, he scores 1, then he scores another, and it's like, oh, man. So we started paying attention to the game, and then in hockey, if you're not familiar, if you're losing the game with like a minute or 2 left by like a goal or 2, often teams will pull their goalie out to get an extra skater on the ice. So they did that. And everyone's like, oh, here it is. But apparently Ovechkin didn't want to score it that way. He's like, don't put me on. We'll wait. And actually, a young American rookie's got his first career goal, Ryan Leonard, on that. And then yesterday on Long Island, Ovi scored on a power play with one of the more aggressive wrist shots I've ever seen. It was really cool. They stopped the game. There was a whole ceremony in the middle of the ice, like in the middle of the second period.
Totally prepared for this. Gretzky was in the house. Wayne comes out with class, congratulating him, saying something like, "I know how hard it was to get to 894, so props to you for getting to 895. That's pretty special." The old expression is records are made to be broken, right? So who's next? Who's going to get more goals than him? I don't know. Hey, that's big story in the news. Pastor Bob, that's some sports stuff. What about other kinds of news stories? What else is happening out there?
Well, in the world of arts, I think Tim had another story for us. Do you want to talk about what you saw, Tim?
Yeah, so a bit of controversy going on in the movie industry, as it is rumored that
I can't picture this.
The new adaptation of the Chronicles of Narnia series, which I was really excited for. They're finally going to do 7 movies. They're going to do all the books. They missed out on a lot of good ones when they last did the movies. But it's rumored now that Meryl Streep might be playing the role of Aslan in the new movie series. So I wanted to get your guys' take on that.
Well, Tim, I did have you text me. I wasn't aware of it until then, and then I looked it up, and sadly, it does look like it's making the rounds on the internet. So we're gonna go from Liam Neeson to Meryl Streep as the Lion.
Pretty significant shift.
In the words of Dodgeball, that's a bold choice, Cotton.
What I don't understand is there's biological differences between a lion and a lioness. There's a look. Aslan has characteristics. So are you going to have a female voice with a male? Is he going to keep the male body with the male lion types of?
I mean, this is the world we live in. People seem to not care about that.
I guess what's confusing is, I know the main thing is where a lot of people
have like
are
a
confused.
burly, angry lion that's talking like a woman.
I guess so. I don't know. That's why I say it's a bold, interesting, weird choice. Mm-hmm. There's nothing to say about Meryl Streep is obviously a wonderful actress, but yeah, why? And people are aware of what the Chronicles of Narnia are. Sometimes it does seem people like there's a choice to intentionally irritate the base of the movie.
Why do they need to gender swap a character that's beloved? And no, if it's not broke, why fix it? I mean,
yeah.
So
unless
everybody
people will
knows
watch.
Aslan is Jesus, right?
Yes.
So this is not subtle.
Well, I'm not sure everybody knows. Everybody who's a Christian knows, but if you're like in the wider culture, unless this is appeal to some weird swath of the wider culture, but your base is going to be Christians who love C.S. Lewis.
Yeah, so you're going to aggravate them.
I was just
that's
going to
probably
ask.
the main moviegoers, main watchers.
Is this on the same level?
With all due respect to Meryl Streep and her acting abilities, there is no conceivable reason to cast Aslan as a female. It's a male lion. That's what it is. You're changing the story.
I did not think until you mentioned that about the physical differences between male and female lions, but will you have clearly a male lion who has a female voice?
In the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, they have to cut off his mane before he gets sacrificed on the stone table. But I was going to ask you guys, is this on the same level?
There is no mane to cut off.
There's no mane, yeah, unless it's a male lion with a female voice. Is this on the same level as Cynthia Erivo playing Jesus Christ in Super?
It's exactly. It is exactly the same. It is an assault on the fan base. And have you learned nothing, Netflix, from the Snow White debacle?
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's why I brought up Snow White. Nobody watched Snow White because people were just enough with this.
Yeah.
By the way, Pastor Bob, you had one of the sickest burns ever during your sermon yesterday. I might clip it in right here.
What was it?
It was
throwing some shade.
I might play it, but it. I have some reverb in my voice. I got to fix that from a recording.
Wow.
Sorry, everyone. Oh boy.
So the guy who actually is going to direct this, I'm reading now, is the guy who directed Barbie. I didn't realize that.
I think it's a girl.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Greta Gerwig. Yes, she was the person who did Barbie.
My fault.
Tim and I were talking about this.
Greta Gerwig.
Well, you never know these days. I mean, I don't know, but that's my assumption is that it was a female.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah. So the person, what I meant is the same director.
Yes.
Wow. That's an interesting thing.
Yeah, I forget what else she's done, but Barbie was the biggest thing in recent years.
That's the movie that made Ken look like a total idiot, right? And
yeah, she's Barbie and he's just Ken. That was the tagline.
Man, I'm sensing a theme here.
Yeah.
Anything you can do, I can do better. Is that?
I guess so. I guess so. Well, maybe that's a good way of segueing into a House of David update, because you can see the differences in terms of how people are approaching these intellectual properties, as it were. Now, obviously, David is based on the Bible, and Chronicles of Narnia is a beloved children's story written by a Christian writer that clearly is an allegory. But listening to some of the interviews with the guy who's playing David very clearly indicates this kind of spiritual backdrop to what they're doing on the show. And I was watching this interview with him and this guy who plays Goliath, and I'm not quite sure if the guy who played Goliath was like fully over the line to being a Christian, but was definitely very interested and impacted by what they were doing on the show. But David's legit. He's like...
I watched an interview with K-Love yesterday with the actor
Michael Iskander,
who played David, and he tried out for the part. So this is really an interesting backstory. There's a spiritual thread that kind of, I think, is behind this particular film's success. And by the way, 22 million viewers. 22 million viewers. So it's breaking.
Well, see, this is the thing, right? Man. If you're going to cast Meryl Streep as the lion, and your viewership is going to go down. I'm sorry.
Hello, pay attention if it's about money. So I was watching a story, and so as Michael was trying out for the David part, this was something that he had always wanted to do in his life, and secondly, he always wanted to imagine the Psalms really sung in Hebrew, how they might have been by David, which I think all of us kind of wonder. It lists these weird instruments, and it's like, I wonder how this sounded. We don't know. That hasn't been preserved for us. But he decided to buy himself a lyre, teach himself to do that. He's already a vocalist. He was, a Broadway singer. But learn Hebrew. He went and memorized the Shema and then put that to music. And that's the first time that you hear David sing in Saul's court. And it is a showstopper. When you hear him do that episode, I can't remember that was 2 or 3.
Song of Moses.
When David sings, man, it's unbelievable. The Song of Moses is something he did too. Anyway, I don't remember. But
that was the title of the episode.
Yeah, no, but he puts the Song of Moses to lyrics too, right? So, and Michal is all smitten about that. So it was amazing. And then he talked about how he was up for the role, and he prayed and fasted before he went for his audition. And then he learned how to do the slingshot thing, which was that's not easy.
That's not easy.
There's a skill to it. It's like a 3-time wraparound thing, and then there's different techniques. So he learned all of that. He's really good too at that. And then
so watch out.
Yeah. So then they're like, we want you, but we don't really see you in this role because you don't have the David warrior look. You do well with the singing and the psalmist and the shepherd David role, but we can't picture you being the warrior that's going to be in the future series, seasons and stuff. So what Michael Iskander did was he went home and grew out his beard, the scruff, as much as he possibly could, and he started working out. And he hit the gym, and he went back to them, and eventually they cast him in the role.
Said, all right, this is
him over
this is
to
David.
Greece, I think, is where they did the filming.
Yeah.
So it was pretty. So did you guys watch the ending with the Goliath?
I'm still on episode 1.
I did. I actually.
Okay. What are your thoughts on the ending, man? How do you feel like they did?
I thought they did. What was really interesting to me was just kind of picturing David coming up, seeing what was going on, commenting on it. I thought I've seen a lot of people on the internet, wanting to put clickbait out there and saying, oh, this isn't biblical, it's this and that, they're adding to the Bible. As we've talked about in previous weeks, they're imagining some of the background stuff that's not explicitly stated in the Bible, but they're trying to get a good adaptation for film from the scriptures. But the reason I'm saying that is that when you watch David coming into the camp and his interaction with Saul, that's pretty true to what is described in 1 Samuel 17. I thought even the words of scripture they had in there. Even David's, of course, one of my favorite David's speech that the world will know that there's a God in Israel. I'm going to cut off your head and all that. You come against me with sword and spear and javelin, but I come against you with the name of the Lord of hosts, whom you have defied, right?
Classic line.
Yep.
He nailed it.
Yeah.
That was great.
And did you see how they kind of panned around? One of the techniques they used was if people were further away from the actual valley, they kind of lowered the sound, so it wasn't like you were right next to them.
No, I didn't notice that.
That was kind of a bit of a technique. Like if you were sitting on the hills, you wouldn't have heard him as clearly as if you were right up front.
Right.
But then when he just charges out there, it was pretty cool.
Out of my way.
Yeah.
And he starts running, and then that final sling. And then the Goliath fall. So if you read 1 Samuel 17, you do read that he did fall headlong. Yeah. So I was watching that interview with the guy who played Goliath, and he really did fall headlong without bracing himself with his arms. And he's like, we only got one take for this. I'm not doing this more than once. And he had to fall straight down on his face.
Wow.
And that was captured really well from multiple camera angles. They went most of the time with a very far away shot of this like towering Eiffel Tower falling, headlong.
That's crazy. You see that happen, then of course all of Israel's like, get my horse, go.
They were just as surprised as, it was thrilling. It was well done. Great story, great drama. Kudos to the actors and people behind the show. Now we're ready for season 2, maybe at the end of this year, maybe next year. We don't know, but
So speaking, just one quick last point about Michael Iskander. So he's 24 years old. He was born in 2000. And what we were talking about yesterday was, is he going to... So he's a young guy. Depending on how long this goes, is he going to play old David, or are they at some point going to switch out the actors? Are they just going to try to age him up like digitally or something?
I don't have a prediction there.
I mean, I can see him obviously but once we get into 2 Samuel and at the end, and is he the guy who's going to have Absalom rebelling against him, or are they going to switch out to an older actor?
Right.
I guess we'll see.
I don't know. There was a couple of details in the show that were very well researched, including the makers of Goliath's armor. They got that right. They got a lot of historical background right. A couple things they changed drastically that I'm like, why did you do that? Like they had Samuel offering a sacrifice at the battle. That wasn't happening. And then they had so Saul's son Ishbosheth does take the throne.
Oh, yeah.
But that's later, way after the Goliath battle.
Right.
And he's like ruling the northern tribes, and David's ruling the southern tribes, and then David reunites
I'm sure
them.
they're doing it for pacing a story type of thing. They're compressing a lot. I mean, this happens whenever you're taking a piece of literature and putting it to be a compelling narrative on screen. You can't quite do it the same way.
So, this is an interesting
thing.
So
they're trying to build this thread that's going to pull you in.
Right. So we in the West, we have certain criteria that we think about when we talk about the Bible's inerrancy, but yet the Bible sometimes uses techniques like compression and telescoping and sometimes reordering of events. And the Gospels actually do this on several different occasions for narrative form, right? But we could nitpick and we could go, okay, that part of the House of David story was not true. That's an error. Or we could say, no, man, the heart of that story is true, and the director has just decided to rearrange a few of the parts for dramatic effect, because the film genre allows you in that medium to make those kinds of changes and decisions. And sometimes we even see techniques like that in ancient literature.
Yeah.
So,
I think even in the 1 Samuel 15 to 17, isn't there a couple repetitions, and you're wondering when David is in the house and how that Saul's house and how that relates to the actual battle with Goliath?
Yeah. The timeline's somewhat unclear.
But is much said about Saul's wife, because she's played a major role in this season, but there's not a whole lot said.
Ahinoam.
Yeah,
but he had multiple wives, and they're hiding that. They haven't talked at all about polygamy.
Yeah.
So they've
and David, of course, later on too.
Yeah. Well, right now he's not married yet, but maybe later they'll try to whitewash that too. I don't know, but the other thing that was news to me, last week I talked about the Jewish tradition of David's mom and stuff like that. This week I'll just talk about Orpah and the fact that she was somehow the giant's mom.
Oh, right.
So you may remember from the book of Ruth, Orpah was the other daughter, right? that didn't go with Naomi back to the promised land. And so Jewish tradition actually says that Orpah was the mom of the giants. And I did not know that. I'm like, really?
Wow.
Okay. That
That's
was
crazy.
not something I was aware of. But that is part of the Jewish tradition. So again, we got to get together with the rabbis and get some background.
That's
here.
true. And when Goliath did throw the final spear, he goes, "For my mom." Right? Yeah. So they're trying to make him a bit sympathetic,
Yeah. And what was cool is the Jonathan part, where Jonathan was like conflicted about the fact that David was going to be taking his father's throne, but at the same time aware that this is Samuel's choice, this is God's choice, and he's got to respect the anointed one. And so Jonathan is put in a position where's your ultimate allegiance? Is it to your bloodline, your family, or is it to God and his choice? And Jonathan decides to support David, and he throws the rock to David and goes, there's a moment where he's exposed right after he throws the spear. The shield goes out of the way. You only have like a second, but there's a moment you could hit him where he doesn't have his shield protecting him. And Jonathan gives him that tip, and of course that's how he causes the giant to fall.
Yeah.
So
Jonathan, of course, as always, is portrayed as being righteous, kind of doing the right thing, even when everybody around him is doing the wrong thing.
Yeah. Great show,
Yeah.
Good story, House of David. If you haven't watched it, what's going on? Just push pause right here and go log on to Amazon.
Which makes
Prime
me
and
even more sad about it. I did read the end of 1 Samuel again to remember what happened to Jonathan, and it's not great. At the end of 1 Samuel.
No, it's the Song of the Bow laments
Yeah.
the death of Jonathan and Saul at the beginning of 2 Samuel.
Yeah.
All right, well, good. Any other news stories today that we forgot or missed, or are we good?
I think we're good.
All right, we're at that part of our program where we have a riveting competition going on. You know it, you love it.
It's why you're tuning in.
We give
Some of
book
you just fast
recommendations.
forwarded right to this section. You didn't watch anything that we just said.
And
So
you
if you're just
decide.
joining us right now,
Here we go. I had a hard time deciding this week. I'm working
Here's
on
the
a couple
score.
books. And
oh wait, don't we get to find out
Oh,
who
yeah.
won last week?
Oh, yeah.
You got to figure out
First
who won
of all,
last week.
Yeah.
So-
first things first here.
Riveting competition as well. Now, Pastor Dave is on the he's riding a 3-game win streak at the moment.
It's like the 2003 Yankees. Right
He's
here.
come back from what seemed to be, it's like the Duke Houston, whatever it was, game, right? It was Houston versus Duke?
Houston Duke.
Houston
right.
Duke. It's like Houston. They were down, now they're back. So here's the score. Coming into this week, it's 10-10.
Mm-hmm.
And
It's all neck and neck, tied up, going into overtime.
Pastor Dave does it again.
Silence of Adam. Classic, man. That was a good book.
Here is the breakdown of the votes. Only 5 of you voted. Looking for some more voter participation, but this one was close.
Man.
I think only by 1 vote.
I gotta switch up my strategy because before you were giving us the task of picking a book that you would choose. So
Yes.
now we never quite know who's watching and what they would want to.
We don't know.
They would want to.
We don't know.
read.
So the updated score is
Da-da-da.
11 to 10.
Wow.
Pastor Dave, he retakes
Came
the
back,
lead.
Came back.
So now,
So much winning.
Pastor Bob, how do you respond? Is this some
I'm gonna
boasting?
put
He's gonna regroup.
I'm gonna put a book tariff on you over there.
Well, here we go.
Well, I guess we'll just keep plugging on and see what happens. So the book that I'm going to recommend this week, I think, has a chance. It's called A Praying Life by Paul Miller. And he just does a good job of, well, actually I should read the subtitle is Connecting with God in a Distracting World. And he just does a good job of walking you through what does it look like to actually build a prayer rhythm into your life. So I'll read you the back. Prayer is simply you, a child of a good father, making conversation with him a rhythm of your life. For most of us, prayer is so hard that unless circumstances demand it, we simply do not pray. Prayerlessness is rooted in unbelief. Because of prayerlessness, our lives are often marked by fear, anxiety, joylessness, and spiritual lethargy. Who doesn't need to pray more? If prayerlessness marks your life, more often than not, a praying life is for you. Now, with added chapters on prayers of lament and further guidance for using prayer cards, Paul Miller introduces us to prayer that regularly and consistently hopes, trusts, and expects God to act. So who doesn't want to read this book? Who doesn't need to pray more? I submit this to you as a wonderful resource to make your way through, and it is a wonderful cover. I am One of the things that I usually do is I'll read the book, and if I ever get the audio, I will get the audiobook so I can it forces me to read a little faster and focus. So that's what I'm doing with this book, and it's really good. Paul Tripp says, a book on prayer that actually makes you want to pray. There you go. A Praying Life. Boom.
That's a pretty good book, man. And Paul Miller actually goes to Calvary Church Souderton.
Oh, he does?
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. You told me that. Did we talk about having him coming and doing a prayer seminar?
We should.
Yeah.
Yeah, we should. Good book. There's also a companion journal that goes with that, by the way. So my book today is Leadership Pain by Sam Chand. This is specifically geared to leaders, so this might be a narrow audience for this one. Those of you who are in leadership.
We never quite know who's watching, though.
We don't. So, if you want to be a good leader, raise the threshold of your pain tolerance. This is how oftentimes God causes growth to happen, whether you want to grow your church or you grow your business or you need to, stretch yourself. Your reluctance to face the pain in your life is your greatest limitation. So there is no growth without change, and there's no change without some kind of pain and loss. Bottom line, if you're not hurting, you're not leading. So this book is a theology of pain and a theological treatise about leadership pain specifically. Sam Chand basically has a ministry to pastors. Good book. If you're going through something and you're a leader, I'd recommend this. This is an encouragement to you, and I think that you'll enjoy this resource, although it's pretty narrow in the scope of who might be interested in this. So I'm taking a big risk here today. I don't know. This doesn't hit everybody.
Big risk, big reward, we'll see.
But I was blessed by this book, and if you're in the middle of it, this may bless you too. All right, that's my book.
And there you go.
You decide. It's a great book war.
You decide. People, I know there's more than 5 of you watching this show or listening to the show.
Are you making people confirm that they're humans, or are these AI bots that are voting right here?
Well, the AI bots, if they are AI bots, they really like Pastor Dave.
That's what I'm saying. He's got the algorithm pushing towards him.
But hey, you. You're watching. I see you. Or you're listening. It's in the description. There's a link. It's a form. Go fill it out. It takes 5 seconds.
We didn't talk about Larry Shuttlesworth from yesterday.
Wait, there was a guy with a lot of mousse in his hair, and he kind of had
and those red glasses,
New Jersey Italian accent going on. Is that
Boom.
What it was? There he
Bam!
is.
There. Boom! There you go.
There's ride the shuttle too.
You might get the gold card.
Tim, everyone was laughing and busting a gut yesterday in church. If you guys didn't see that, we'll post it on YouTube later.
It's live now.
Tim did a great job just highlighting the importance of opening up our parking lot with a really funny video about the shuttle and an explanation of our new shuttle rewards program. So it's on. And that's another competition. The Great Book War is one thing, but the shuttle riding competition
is going to be the first one to earn one of those crew necks.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Competition is a good thing, right?
Yeah. So I think we've reached the point in our show where we dive a little deeper into the sermon. We didn't get any questions this week, so
charts.
You know what? Let's do some charts. I forgot about the charts.
Charts lead into the sermon.
Yeah. Which one do you want to start with?
You pick. You decide.
All right. So I made this chart last week.
Tim decided it for us. Okay, there we go.
So if you watched last show, if you're like a faithful subscriber, you may even remember this. I was envisioning a chart in my head last week, and I decided to create it. And
brought it about.
Last week we were talking about 2 Corinthians 10 and 11, and there's this thing about like weakness, and sometimes weakness is good, and sometimes strength is bad. But not always. So I think we need to have some helpful categories here. So here's my matrix. There is good strength, bad strength, good weakness, bad weakness. So
good strength, bad strength.
You see how it goes. So an example of good strength would be like you operating out of your spiritual gift. The Lord has called you to this, and you should be strong. Walking in your authority as a believer in Christ. God has given you promises, and you're to claim those. Being who God made you to be. Like, you're made in his image, and it's okay for you to rest secure in that. And just walking in obedience. Like, you should feel strong And, like David, be strong and courageous.
David fighting Goliath.
Go for it. Obey God, walk out in faith, and that's good strength. Bad strength would be like pride, arrogance, self-confidence, having a superior attitude, boasting, judging others. You see how strength can go wrong. That's like the bad leaders in 2 Corinthians 10 and 11.
Yeah.
Then we have good weakness, and we're going to get more into this in Bob's sermon today, but this is characterized by humility and dependence on God and having a sober self-assessment. Those are weaknesses that are glorifying to God and good. And then I do think there's such a thing as a bad weakness, right? So an unhealthy, low view of yourself, that's not what God is calling us to do. There's bad weakness like just thinking you're a worm and you're worthless, and that's not really embracing the fact that God has made you and you're made with a purpose, on purpose, and you need to embrace that. I don't think that we need to be self-defacing in that way. So we're made in His image. It's actually heretical to blaspheme the image of God in that way. And so there you go. My chart. What do you think? Is that helpful? Is that
Well, as you have told us, a chart is a visual representation of data, so it does help us to, at least see how this could be. What we should do is we should challenge folks. If you didn't like that chart, why don't you make a chart and submit it, and we'll put it on the.
I've got no chart submissions. There was a call for a chart submission a while. Email me.
Well, maybe they just like the. My point is that if they don't like Dave's chart, if you don't complain about it, you submit your own chart, and then we'll vote. We'll have people decide which chart is the better one.
Pastor Dave, I give this.
I like the color coding right there.
Thanks, man. I had to decide on the green. I wasn't sure what would work there. It's hard to see the text on the green.
This is a solid chart, man.
Green means go.
Yeah. Well, that shouldn't be the bad.
Shouldn't the bad should both be black?
Maybe.
This is a solid B.
All right. The concept is good, but I think the
great
visual,
concept.
The visual could work.
The visual would have taken this.
Right. It is a hard thing for people to think about. What is strength and weakness? Obviously, we'll talk about this, but that's helpful. The other chart was
Second chart. Two charts.
Jewish
charts in one day?
I
can't take it.
Time for celebration.
I feel like I'm taking over this show.
So this was the chart I showed yesterday about the Jewish cosmology. And, if you read through the Old Testament, and often it talks about going down to Sheol or up to the heavens. We have the vault of heaven. Because we were talking about this, there's this concept of multiple heavens in some of these Jewish cosmology things. So you kind of have the vault of heaven, the water above the vault, and then you get the head. So Paul talks about this third heaven. Is that what he's talking about? This dwelling place way above there. And then you have the abyss of the waters and the pillars holding up the heavens. It's a little crazy.
So the first heaven is like where the birds fly.
Right.
Then the second heaven is like where all the other planets and stars are. And there's a third heaven where God lives. That chart doesn't exactly have the three parts perfect there, but Paul says he went up to the third heaven. Then you see it's sitting on pillars. We read that in the Bible. As a poetic image for how the earth is founded, like God is the architect and has created it. This was their ancient cosmology. And in the middle of the world, in the center of the world, was the city of Zion, the city of Jerusalem. That's not really depicted perfectly there, but that's an interesting way to think about the world.
It looks kind of like Middle Earth.
Yeah. It's like a three-tiered universe.
Maybe Tolkien was influenced by this.
Yeah.
And Tim, you were saying that this has been getting commented on all through the internet, right?
I still see people on the internet who are like their belief system is this, which I think is interesting.
It is.
You mean like flat Earth?
Yes.
Oh my
flat
gosh.
earthers. Oh,
wow.
So that is a thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
I like some Christian stuff that shows up on my social media. They talk about the Earth in this context.
I see. Do they think we haven't been to space either?
That's sad. So
maybe
the heavens in Hebrew, Shemayim. It's an interesting way to think about the world. There was a firmament, right, and then above that was the waters. So that leads us into your sermon. Paul's talking about actually visiting the third heaven.
He's got visions and revelations.
Famous passage in 2 Corinthians 12. Tell us in a 60-second flyover, what is 2 Corinthians 12, 1 through 10 about?
Well, I titled it Resilience Through Weakness. It could be called Strength Through Weakness. It could be called Living Weak. Paul is giving this contrast of when I'm weak, then I'm strong, which seems very counterintuitive to us. So what I did in terms of framing it out, we talked a little bit at the beginning about the need for resilience. I gave the illustration about the biosphere and how the trees that face no wind didn't have their roots grow down deep. And then in our world, a lot of times we are called to look for strength in ourselves rather than outside of ourselves. And that's a problem, and it leads to boasting. And that's what Paul is continuing to harp on here in verses 1 through 10. So the key question was, how do you cultivate resilient weakness in your life? And I gave it some medical terms. I voiced it this way. Number 1, you have to diagnose the illness. Number 2, you drink the medicine. Number 3, you proclaim the cure. Diagnosing the illness is all about our boasting problem, the boasting epidemic in our world. But once you recognize you're sick and you have a problem, you can take the medicine, which is rather painful. And that's where Paul talks about that thorn in the flesh. But then once God does his work in you, he makes you humble. Then you can proclaim the cure, which is the gospel of Jesus Christ, and the grace of God, which is where Paul finishes off this section. So I'll stop there. That's about 60 seconds or so.
Yeah. All right. So what is this disease? I feel like maybe that's hard to understand. What is my problem? What's my illness? What's my ailment?
Right. Well, maybe we can tag team, because this concept of boasting goes all the way back to chapter 11, which you got into last week.
So you're finishing what was called the fool's speech that began in the middle of 11 and goes all the way through 12. And then there's a little like appendix to the fool's speech after 12:10, but that's basically the ending, what you did.
Yeah. Well, one of the things Paul is doing here, I think, is and really since chapter 11, he's been going back and forth with these super apostles. So he starts chapter 12 by saying, all this boasting I've been doing is going to do no good, but I'm going to go on. And he talks about the visions and the revelations and going to the third heaven. Basically to tell these super apostles, hey, listen, I got the receipts. I really do have these experiences, which gives me credentialing. But he also talks about how it's a problem in the fact that, we boast about these things to make ourselves look good. And in a lot of ways, I think maybe intuitively, that's just naturally where we go in our flesh. We want to talk about accomplishments. We want to talk about, oh, this person has that car. Well, let me show you what I got. It pushes you on to bigger and better and faster and slicker. And not that competition is necessarily a bad thing, but there can be a poor motivation behind it. So Paul is at least telling us to beware of what we boast in, because the thing we should be boasting in is the fact that God has given us grace.
It's hard for us to see that. It's kind of hidden. It's like a disease without a whole lot of symptoms.
It's something that's like growing underneath that probably comes out at certain times, and you say, oh, really? I got some sickness underneath I didn't realize.
Yeah.
But it's not glaring.
Yeah, I can't see it because I don't want to see it, because if I saw it, then it would mean something devastating to me, right? So I'm protecting myself from seeing that. So I've got this self-deception thing going on there.
Well, and there's also a form of self-justification in it too. That look at how amazing I am, and if I'm so amazing, why do I even need God?
And then down underneath of the I'm so amazing and the self-justification is some kind of deep insecurity, right? So we're trying to prove something. We all want to justify our own existence, right? So
yeah. I had a friend who used to say there's a little 7th grader in all of us. So when you're in 7th grade, you're always talking about, oh, look what I can do on the basketball court, or how fast I can run, or look at the new toy that I got. And when you get older, it just becomes other things. You're just boasting about your new car or whatever it is.
Yeah. And that gets in the way of love. And it also just doesn't really embrace, God's grace, which is only available to those of us who will embrace our illness.
Yeah. Well, I used that illustration about the bad first date. Hopefully not everybody's experienced that, but that's a very glaring example of somebody who just
I felt like that was very personal, Bob. Is there a story there?
No, there's not. There's not. But I've seen plenty of TV shows where that's certainly been the case.
Okay, yeah.
Somebody's just going on and on and on and on and on and on and on. You're like, all right, well, nice meeting you.
Work.
Right? It's not you, it's me.
You guys seen Santa Claus 2?
Yeah.
No.
I'm sure it was a Seinfeld episode somewhere. Just said that just
maybe
for
like
John
9
Bonaventura.
Seinfeld episodes.
Yeah. So okay, that's the illness part, and then so what's the medicine?
The medicine is
going to hurt. Sometimes medicine is painful. It's like surgery, right?
Well, this is the thorn in the flesh. So sometimes
we're going to eat some shrimp and scallops.
we are allowed to receive a thorn in the flesh to keep us humble, to keep us from being proud.
Ouch.
Yes. So let me read the verse what Paul says. Paul says, even though I have received such wonderful revelations from God, so to keep me from becoming proud, I was given a thorn in my flesh, a messenger from Satan to torment me and keep me from becoming proud. So let's just make a couple observations about this verse right here. And I'm going to just read out what George Guthrie says in his commentary. First, he says, the thorn in the flesh was given to him so that he might not be consumed with self-importance. That's how he voices it, and that's what Paul's getting at here. So that you may not be consumed with self-importance. Second, the thorn was given to the apostle, and it was not an accident. It was not a machination of evil people or something Paul took upon himself. The apostle describes the thorn as a gift. It was a gift, literally, in the Greek. It's this idea that it was given to him as a gift from who we don't know, but it was given to him. Third, it was a thorn in the flesh, which we understand refers to the persecution the apostle experienced at the hands of opponents. So that was his interpretation. That's debated, and we can talk about that in a second. Fourth, though the thorn was redemptive and ultimately from God, Paul describes it as a messenger from Satan. Fifth, the thorn was given in order that it might beat Paul. So he goes on to say here that the word that's used here for
Buffet.
the tormenting, right, was this idea of interrogation. It was actually used in Matthew 26:67, where they were interrogating Jesus and they were spitting in his face and striking him with their fists. And then finally, 6, Paul writes, I pleaded with the Lord 3 times so that it might be kept away from me. So there was this pleading part. So there's a lot of complexity to this verse 7 right here. The scallops is the Greek word for the thorn. And as I mentioned, that can be any number of things. So a stake in the ground, a thorn, a surgical instrument, a fishhook. It could be a lot of other things. People think it was either some kind of physical or mental ailment, but...
Wait. Can I just list the possibilities?
Go ahead.
All right.
Yeah.
So I was just reminded in Paul Barnett's work, he's got a great commentary on 2 Corinthians. So typically there's a couple categories that commentators put the thorn in. One is physical, right? So like an illness or a disfigurement or disability or something like that, or a moral temptation. Or another option is relational. So like someone opposing him in ministry or persecution or that kind of thing. He kind of leans more towards the relational because of some of the verbs there and stuff like that. Here's some other things that people have said. Some people have said he had eye problems because in Galatians he says that you would have torn out your eyes for me, and he says I write these things with such large letters. Some people said he had epilepsy. Some people said malaria. Some people said he had migraine headaches or general weakness. Some people said it was a temptation to pride or discouragement. Some people said it was demonic harassment because he says it's a messenger of Satan. Some people say it's depression. Some people say it was those Judaizers that are trying to oppose him in his ministry, constantly following him around. Some people say it was just other kinds of persecution. 4 views from the church fathers. Tertullian said physical suffering. John Chrysostom leaned toward persecution. Augustine believed it was some kind of temptation, specifically sexual in nature, which, if you know Augustine's story, that was his main issue in his life. So sometimes we read ourselves into people's stories. Yeah. And then John Calvin took a broader view, who said it was some physical ailment allowed by God to humble Paul. We don't know, right? But it's broad
All
enough.
of those you can see make some sense. I do see where it could be, have some kind of relational component given the whole context of what he's talking about there, and the phrase "the thorn in the flesh" was often used of somebody who was like a pain in the neck, in the first century.
That was helpful historical context.
Yeah. So
the commentator leans toward the relational view for the reasons of the verb take away. Evidently leans towards that, and it's used in the New Testament of persons. So, like, take him away, right? So that's oftentimes how that word is used. And so if it's relational, maybe that was an enemy, or maybe that was, someone that was just really against Paul.
Yeah, this George Guthrie in The Baker, he takes the view that it was persecution at the hands of his opponents. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So... Anyway, the migraine actually would have been a good illustration. I wish I had thought about that.
Is helpful.
Yeah.
Because it makes it a little bit more relatable. Like, what if I don't have eye problems? Then all of a sudden I read over this passage, and if it's eye problems, I feel like this doesn't really apply to me, although I do have eye problems. But the fact that he just calls it a thorn and makes it broad helps it to be universally applicable to any reader. It's like, yeah, I deal with that too. Right, so you talked about in the sermon of like, what if God actually sent you this thorn? Would you be willing to embrace? I think you said drink
the thorns, man.
Bro,
I wanted to be pretty clear.
You put these thorns on the screen. You're like, drink the thorns. I'm like, oh man, that is brutal. You want me to swallow that?
I had to take a lozenge after that.
Oh my gosh, drink the thorns.
Well, right,
have mercy.
Right, but sometimes I think the pain that comes in our life is a way of God allowing us to God showing us that we really need him, because we are so prone to want to do things ourselves. And we just have this mindset, I think, in 21st century America, that things just always need to be good, and if anything bad comes or it's hard, then just God isn't with us. And I don't think that's at all what Paul is saying.
I'm just saying. Leadership pain.
There you go. Hey, good choice. Man, he's plugging it again.
That's why I chose it, because it's related to today.
There you go.
Although prayer is also applicable to
It is.
All right, so we're drinking the thorns. And the third part is proclaim the cure. Not just receive the cure, not just like enjoy the cure, not just, hey, I'm cured. No. A step further is to share the good news of the cure with others. So you took it externally there. So tell us about part 3.
I did that partially because of the song that John chose, but so what you're saying could have also been true and is true. But you don't receive a cure and then just say, well, I'm just going to keep this and hoard it for myself. Don't you want to go and tell other people about how you can also experience this cure to your ailment, which we all have?
It works. Yeah. Like, when you have good news, you share it.
God's grace is sufficient for you too, right? Not just for me.
Right. If you found a medicine that helps someone, you're going to want to like help other people and share the good news about that, proclaiming the cure. So that's good. So now we come to this paradox of strength
when I am weak,
weakness.
Then I am strong.
What is that? You said a couple things it's not. Like you said, oh, I stink at basketball. Let me just boast in my weakness at basketball, or I can't parallel park. I can't remember what you said, but a couple different like silly illustrations of what
I can't make a basket to save my life. I'm not organized, so don't bother sending me a calendar invite. Take that.
That's not what it is. Right?
No. It's
what is it?
I think it's getting at this idea that God is able to use us in our weakness, because when we lean into our own strength, we're actually putting up a barrier between us and God. We're not allowing God to come in and do his work, because we basically are putting ourselves in his position. So when I admit I'm weak, I can't do this. Lord, I need your help. As David said, the battle belongs to the Lord. I was struck, sorry to come back to the house of David, but when he goes out there and he basically says, I'm afraid.
Okay, so his older brother, Abinadab, goes, why aren't you afraid?
He goes, I am. But in that moment, Lord, I have to totally rely on you to be the one who wins this battle. That's almost the picture of the strength and weakness. I know I'm weak. Apart from you, I'm going to be your vessel to go and accomplish what you've called me to do. And I can only do that when I recognize just how weak I am.
Yeah.
I'm not Goliath, right? Goliath thought he would, I'm so strong, send me your chap, right? But God can't use that.
So here's the thing. Yeah, true. Here's the thing. Like, if you saw the film, David was even being made fun of and mocked by his own people as he went out there, and they were sneering at him.
Right. I know somebody else who had that happen too, right?
Yeah. Who?
Jesus.
Oh. Sorry about that. Yeah. I remember Jesus. Okay, yes. So what's interesting is like
the stone the builders rejected.
David says to his brothers and his people, am I the only one who believes the old stories? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And of course, in his day, that was like 1000 BC. There was just the stories of, like the patriarchs and then the Exodus and then, of course, Joshua and Judges and the conquest. There was a limited amount of stories, but yet David read those stories and believed that God could part the Red Sea, that Samson could, knock down a building, and that God could do mighty things. And David believed those things. So he understood he was weak, but yet just trusted that God can do the impossible, like Jericho can fall. And he knew the stories. So here's a paradox, Bob. On the one hand, it's like David was clear about the fact that he was weak and he couldn't do that. On the other hand, he was also prepared by God. So Samuel had already visited his dad's house, Jesse's house. He already anointed him with oil. He was already told that he was going to be the future king of Israel. And he had been working with the bears and the lions and facing ferocious opposition. And he was practicing with his sling. Part of him was prepared for this battle too.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yet he should have never won. But it was a mixture of both of those things. It
required him to step on the battlefield and trust the Lord.
Yeah. Yeah. Strength through weakness.
There you go.
We're tying this show together in many levels. So
the big idea was God's power works best in my weakness. God's power works best in my weakness. And actually, I was struck at we did the Market Street Mission graduation yesterday, and one of the guys, this was the verse that he cited. Because I think they were all supposed to choose their favorite Bible verse, and the one guy chose this one. A lot of 2 Corinthians.
Yeah, shout out to the Market Street grad. That was awesome. And then 2 Corinthians was all over that graduation. George, who's the interim CEO, was talking about the ministry of reconciliation, and this is what we do at Market Street. I'm like, man, 2 Corinthians, this is really tying in well with our
you for
series.
Easter.
Yeah. And so there's a paradox there. Strength through weakness. It's one of the many paradoxes that are found inside of the book of 2 Corinthians. We've already seen chapter 1 is comfort through affliction. We've seen life coming through death. Death is at work in us, but life is at work in you. We've seen things like riches that come through poverty. You preached about that in 2 Corinthians 8 and 9.
Right.
Boasting even in our humility, and now strength in our weakness. So there's these paradoxes that 2 Corinthians is calling us to embrace.
Yeah.
Anything else on the sermon before we move on?
I think that's good. It's a great passage. Invite some friends for Easter, and we're going to jump back to chapter 5 after we finish next week. I got to finish with chapter
wrap it up.
12 and 13, and then you'll go back to 5 for Easter.
It'll be a good culmination. Yeah. All right, stay tuned as we continue and wrap up the resilient life over the next few Sundays. And now we've come to that part of our show where we definitely feel weak. And Tim challenges us in our weakness about this one to trust the Lord for his strength to get through the sprint every week. So, Tim, what do you got this time, man?
Pastor David, sounds like you'll be very strong on this one.
Oh, okay. That's always a dangerous...
Tim is confident.
We talked about this a little bit before, so I thought it might be an interesting thing to do a little sprinting on. So today's Theology Sprint is, some people claim the Bible supports a flat earth view, pointing to verses like the four corners of the earth, or the earth is fixed and immovable. I think Job talks about, it mentions God grabbing the earth by the edges and shaking it. How should Christians think about these verses today, especially with what we know from science? Can you believe the Bible and still accept that the earth is round?
There's a few different views on the age of the earth and things like that scientists and Christians disagree on. There's an ancient cosmology reflected in the Bible, but the Bible is using what's called phenomenological language. So they're describing the phenomenon that they're observing. So yes, we all know that the sun doesn't actually rise and the sun doesn't actually set. It's actually the earth that's rotating and revolving that's causing these things. But even we say, did you see the sunrise this morning? here we are in the 21st century, still talking like idiots, right? Don't you know the sun doesn't rise? Of course it doesn't rise, but that's from our perspective what we see. The Bible sometimes will describe things like that in a poetic way, and that's okay. That doesn't affect our view of the inerrancy of the Scriptures. I will say that the Bible also does have some surprisingly good insights with regards to science that it could not have known back then if the God of the universe had not revealed things to us. For example, in Isaiah chapter 40, it talks about the circle of the earth. That was way before we discovered that the earth was spherical. Yeah. The Hebrew word there is actually for sphere. And so I think we have to be careful about reading the Bible, and we have to be willing to read it on its own terms and recognize that there's poetic language there, and allow the Bible to be the Bible. What would you add there, Pastor Bob?
I think that's a good summary. I don't need to take any more time.
All right. So the theological takeaway is don't ask the question, does the Bible teach a flat earth? That's the wrong question. Ask this question. What is this passage teaching us about God and his relationship to his creation and our place in creation? Those are the questions the Bible is asking. And so we have to recognize that sometimes we're not even asking the right questions. And the Bible has profound philosophical, existential answers if we recognize the questions that we need to be asking. There's my sprint, Tim. All right. Body life. I wanted to get this earlier, but Here we are. We've made it. And there's a lot coming up that we really need you to remember. And
so if you fast forwarded to this section, boom, here you are. Boom!
Boom! Larry Shuttlesworth made the best pitch ever for you guys to help us out with some parking. So Shuttle Rewards program is in effect. First ride, boom, $5 gift card.
Boom.
You get to 5 rides. You get the silver card.
Get the silver card.
You get like a tumbler.
You get a choice.
You get a choice.
Between a tote bag
or a tumbler.
Or a tumbler with the NBC logo on it.
And then when I get to what? 10 rides? Boom.
10 more rides after that, you get a gold membership.
Yeah.
Which is your long sleeve t-shirt. And then 20
How can it get better than that, Tim?
Well, you can become a platinum rewards member of the program.
Wow.
36 total rides. You get a crew neck.
That's a lot of rides. How long is it going to take you to ride 36 times?
Well, we did some calculations.
It's going to take like a half a year for you to get there.
Yeah, we did some calculations.
That's a commitment.
Yeah, we kind of decided we don't want it to be too hard, but we don't want it to be too easy either. We can't just be handing out platinum cards.
So you have to have some kind of consistency with riding the shuttle, right?
Yes. And then after that, we haven't figured out like the perks and stuff for those people who reach the platinum status, but they will be a thing.
Whatever it is, it's good.
Will there be a platinum, like literal platinum card?
You want to be a part of this club.
And you get a new card for each upgrade too. We have those designs.
A card you can flash and boast about? Are we encouraging boasting?
We are.
Yes.
All right. So second announcement that we want to make sure we highlight today is the upcoming hair-raising egg party. Make sure you mark your calendar, April 12th. We are in need of candy. We are in need of volunteers, 3 to 5. We hope that you'll help us out. Special needs hours, 2:30. And that's going to be great. Thirdly, we got this coming up at our church. Next week's the pickup day. If you order chocolate, it's in. And so we'll have that available for you.
Yum.
Miss Gertrude is visiting the building. So
make sure you say hi to Gertrude.
Okay. All right.
Wouldn't it be Miss Hawk? Her first name is Gertrude?
Yeah.
Gertie.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. We got Charter Day coming up. Now's the time where we're looking for volunteers. This is an awesome, fun time. Millington has a booth. A lot of other businesses and organizations in our town also participate. And it's a good time to network, and it's going to be a chance to share what Millington's doing. So,
you guys going to go down the slide?
Well,
my kids might. I might watch.
I used to sled down that hill.
Nice.
Go down you want to get in the bouncy house now, right?
I would probably pop the bouncy house.
Concussion to waiting to happen.
Let us know. Millington is in the house. Next announcement. Hey, it's time to sign up. Passion's coming up this week. This year is not in Atlanta, which is unusual. So we're going to Texas. We'd love to see a big group of young adults headed down there again to visit Mr. Giglio and others. And
we were just there back in June for the Colson Center conference. They're literally at the same complex.
Highly recommend it.
Yeah.
It's happening over there.
Boom.
That's all I got.
All right. Well, can I just mention about Easter, Tim? So,
oh yeah, sorry.
If you haven't heard, there are 3 services on Easter: 8, 9:30, and 11. There is not the normal service times on Easter. It's different. You can't go to your normal service time and sit in your normal spot. You got to make a choice. You got to do something different. So,
you can go to your normal service time, but you're probably going to come in the middle of the service, so you'll miss part of the service.
Yeah, don't do that.
Yeah.
So, special call out to those of you who like to drink coffee and get up early like me. Come to the 8th. We could use a few people that are just willing to go to the early one to free up some space for those 2 later services. Please prayerfully consider that. That's an easy way to serve God and help our neighbors be able to find a spot to hear the good news of the gospel. So partner with us. 8 a.m. It's going to be a happening service. 8, 9:30, 11. Easter is coming. April 20th.
Ride the shuttle.
Boom.
Thank you guys for watching today. Have a good rest of your day.
God bless.